Touching ball, both threads.
It's their 14th meeting. Higgins having won 9 of the previous 13, but Day having won the last 2 meetings, including very recently at the World Grand Prix. 4-3, much shorter format, of course. The Crucible is a very different proposition. Day's made the quarterfinals on 3 occasions here in Sheffield.
Touching ball.
Well, he's got touching ball again. That's the 3rd time he's had touching ball, and I thought that he could have played in behind the yellow there. Played a good attacking safety. And again, I think that John Higgins could play him behind the yellow here, but he's just running into the pack. Not taking any risks whatsoever.
Touching ball, both threads.
We've been here before. Well, the way things are heading here, we could be in for a re-rack.
Well, that's not too bad. Again, he could play in behind the yellow here.
Touching ball, both threads.
Hello guys, thanks for joining us this evening.
Higgins and Day.
Just a wee bit of video there showing you some of the later moments
Paul Collier
in
steps
snooker
in, and it looks as
while
though
Paul was
John Higgins is
refereeing.
going to break that particular
We're just
pattern.
about to bring Paul Collier on now. Paul, thanks very much for joining us. I'm just going to unmute you there. I've got you on silent, not intentionally. Hang on, let's see if we can get you back on there. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me okay, Paul?
Yeah, I've got you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thanks for joining us, mate.
That's all right. You're welcome.
And thanks everybody else for coming on. I did promise some of you in the last few months that we would get some officials on, some coaching guys, some referees from the World Snooker Tour. And absolute pleasure to have Paul on. Paul's one of the more senior referees on the tour, as you probably know. He's not just a referee, he's also one of the senior tournament directors on the tour. And we're here today. We're going to be talking about that. And just to get us started, Paul, how did you get into this? Were you a player, and how did you get into refereeing?
Yeah, I was just an amateur player. I started following the game when I was, about 12 or 13. And at the time, we couldn't get into the clubs in my area. In Wales, we had some different rules, and there weren't many snooker centres about then. We hadn't really hit the boom. But once I got to 14, we could start to go in the clubs, and I could play a little bit, but I wanted to learn to play a little bit better. And one of the coaches in my area at the time was a guy called Vic Jones, who sadly passed away a few years ago. But Vic had a theory. He was a referee as well, and he said that if you're going to learn to play the game, you have to learn the mechanics of it to build a cue action, and you ought to know the rules to understand what you're doing. So part of his coaching scheme was that you had to at least follow the rules, and if not, take a referee's exam. You had to be trained to that level. So that was the main reason. And then I sort of stuck with Vic for a while and got fed up with losing in every event I played in. So I went more down the refereeing route than the playing route.
Seems to be the way with snooker players, if they
Absolutely
fail, they turn to something else. Then they just keep failing for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think it's a game that gets you. It's I love the game. It's been a part of my life for a long time. So I've been involved in other sports. I've played a bit of golf, and some other games, but they've never quite got me the way that snooker has. To be fair, so.
Well, I've loved the game like yourself. I mean, you've been a professional referee for almost 20 years.
Over 20 years. I passed 1992. I was part of the class of 92. So Ronnie and Williams and Higgins all came on the scene, and that was my first year as a pro.
Over 20 years. It must be, let me see, it was 92. God, blimey, was it 27, 28 years? Wow.
Yeah, just finished my 28th season. The next tournament will be the start of my 29th. So
You don't look a day over 60, Paul.
thanks very much. I appreciate that.
I know how
I've
old
just
you
lost
are.
my record as the youngest ref, and now you're rubbing it in.
Hey, it could be a lot worse, you know. You know, you could be Brendan.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I couldn't wish that on anybody.
But you know, when you talk about snooker refereeing, it's not the most exciting sport in the world. It's not the most exciting job in the world either. And sometimes that has a reflection on a man's character. You know.
Yeah, that's right. I get a lot of people tell me how miserable I look and I don't smile out there, and but it's one of those things. It's all part of the job. You've got to give it concentration. You're out there to make sure that the two players can play under the best conditions and keep the game as fair as possible. And anybody who wants to be a referee, if they ever ask for advice, the thing I always tell them first is just concentrate. It's very easy to go out if you've started to concentrate and keep your concentration. One of the hardest things I even find now after all these years is if you lose your concentration, to try and get it back mid-match is very, very difficult. So, we all stay focused and we all try and get involved in the moment, but you've got to be careful as well.
Look, that's one of the reasons why you're here, Paul. You know, Brendan and I, as I said, refereeing is not the most exciting part. Sometimes it has a reflection on a man's personality. That's why you're here, and Brendan's not. It's as simple as that.
You can't use personality and Brendan in the same sentence, let's be fair.
Look, I put a poll out there, Paul. I put a poll out there about who's going to come on here and do this chat, and Brendan got one vote.
Really?
One vote from an old lady who's 96. She gets snooker.
Well, that's probably no votes because he would have voted for himself, obviously. So
maybe Brendan was the one, Anyway, a reflection on 20 years as a professional referee.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about snooker referees, I think, can I do this job? And most people who know me on the snooker table will know that that's not going to happen. Probably because I drink too much and I lose count. But
right.
Isn't that got to be the
I don't mind the drink. The counting's all right. I don't mind having a drink.
Okay, I'm not allowed to drink any wine. I'm being watched at the moment. I'm on a track being watched by people.
Right.
If I'm seen with a glass of wine, that's it. I'm done for.
Okay.
So let's touch on the stresses, Paul. You see, look, these guys are playing for very, very big money. Okay, now that must put a lot of pressure on you when you're out there. Particularly, I know you've refereed two world finals so far, and you've obviously refereed to a big extent most of the more senior games, important games on the tour.
Yeah.
What's going through your head out there? What are the stresses? What are the things you're worried about?
I think you're worried about, it's the same thing at every level, whether you're doing a World Championship final, I've just done a semi-final, you could be doing a Masters final, all those big matches, it's a lot of money at stake for the players, but it's just as important that you get your job right in the very first round or the first qualifying round. You've got to give it the same level of thought and the same respect when you go out to do the job. I think my biggest worry is making a mistake under those circumstances. If it's a big match, it's obviously more highlighted because there's television, there's a lot more people watching. But it's not about how many people see it. I mean, you just feel that you've let the players down if you get something wrong. And as a referee, we're under quite a bit of pressure because we've only got to make one mistake and everybody remembers it forever. A player can go out, they can make 3 or 4 mistakes every frame in a best of 9. They get beat 5-0, they come back next week, everybody says, oh, he had a bad day. Unfortunately, they don't treat the referees the same way. And to a certain degree, I appreciate that because, we're out there to do a job. We've got to be qualified to do that job. And that's what you've got to remember. You're out there for the players. It's not about the referees. It is all about the players, and it's about us getting it right.
And it's not just avoiding mistakes, but it's quite stressful in a sense too, because you've got a couple of guys out there obviously playing for a lot of money. And if there's friction between them for any reason or another, or one of them's a bit stressed, or if he's angry, or he's thumping his cue down on the ground, or he's, or you're hearing the words that we don't hear, if you know what I mean, it's that, and you have to put them. Those are the kind of things. Do you find that quite stressful to deal with?
It can be quite stressful, but it doesn't happen very often. I think you tend to see a bit more of that at certainly at club and amateur level. You see a lot more of it. On the professional tour, I think most players have come around to the fact now that, over the probably the last 10 years, we've introduced rules because we're an entertainment sport, and TV don't want to be picking up on these things really. So we've got warnings for ungentlemanly conduct, but if a player's heard to say a word that he shouldn't have said, then obviously we have a word with them. But we've got to be careful as well. It is an entertainment sport, and people like to see a little bit of personality in players. So there's a little bit of cue banging and a little bit of table punching. There's certain things at the right time, you let that go, but then you can't let it get out of hand either. So as far as needle goes, yes, there's a bit. I mean, there's been some well-publicised incidents in the past, and there's been some that have slipped through the net. So they're things you look for. Luckily now, after coming up 29 seasons, I think I've seen most things, and I've got a bit of belief in the way I deal with things, so they don't really worry me anymore. But they can be a little bit unnerving if there's an issue out there.
And that takes us on. I mean, we're going to be talking about how someone becomes a referee very shortly, and things like recruiting and that there. But I think, yes, that's a very good point you've touched on. You need, I think it takes a pretty good personality, a pretty strong personality, to referee a match and run a tournament. And, you need to be able to talk to the players the right way, because they've got to they've got to confide in you.
Yeah, there's something I said when I first went onto the rules committee a few years ago, and one of the first things I said, which a few people didn't like, but they're all coming on board with it now. And I said, in all my years, 29 years as a pro referee, but I was a referee on the amateur circuit for 4 or 5 years before that as well. And I've only ever met 2 types of referee. And there's a referee who wants to referee a snooker match, and they're the ones who tend to do very well. And then there's a referee who wants to be in charge of a snooker match, and they're the ones that don't tend to do as well. So, I mean, you are in charge when you're out there, but the players both accept that, and you don't have to keep reminding them. So I think it's all about the attitude and the way you approach the players when you start the match. That it's sowing the seeds, I suppose. That sets out the spade work for the rest of the day.
I think that's what I found running events and accumulating players to play in events. I mean, I don't referee the players when they play, because obviously, for reasons I've just told you, I would completely cock it up. And the players would lose faith in me if I even a referee just one game.
Yeah.
Because it would be an absolute disaster. I mean, I have brought referees in the past, and they've been okay. But for things like pro-ams, they're probably not really necessary, because another thing we're going to touch on is players' conduct. And I think most players just get on with it, and they're okay. You'll have to do very, very little. If they both have a lot of respect for you, and they have respect for each other, and they just get on with the game. But obviously, one of them's going to lose. One of them's going to play well. The other one's going to get very, very stressed. And that can have a reflection on what he thinks of you, because the ball.
Yeah, a referee can get blamed for a lot of things that a player does wrong. If we call a foul, I've never called a foul in my life that I haven't seen, and I've never taken pleasure from calling one single foul. It's what I'm out there to do. Some players commit fouls, generally if they touch a ball with their sleeve or their waistcoat. They haven't seen it, they probably haven't felt it, and they're not aware that they did it. The only reason they know is because I've told them, when I fouled them and ended their visit. And if the game doesn't go very well, they can hold it against you a little bit, I think. But, So I'm in a lucky position. I've been there that long now. I mean, I've been around longer than most of the players' careers. So they sort of treat me with that little bit of mutual respect. And also our job's a bit easier. I mean, you say the word professional in the game, and that's right. Our players are professional. I mean, I remember refereeing back in the amateur days when you went to a club and did a match, you'd turn up, the black spot would be in the wrong place, and, they'd have hoovered the table before the match, and somebody's drawn a free line or freehand bolt line and things like that to make it look better, all those conditions that you had to put up with. And the big thing then was the players were at it. There was no doubt, you'd get one would stand up when he shouldn't be stood up. They'd be jingling their change in their pocket and rattling their keys. And, it was all things that we sort of cut our teeth on when we were learning to be referees, but it's not part of the professional game, luckily. I'm sure it still happens in clubs. If I start playing again, I'll probably end up doing it, but it's win at any cost at some levels. But fortunately, in the professional game, the players are very professional, and they're a great credit to our sport in that way.
don't be speaking too highly of them now, Paul. But, you know, I don't know. And they know who they are, by the way. They all know who they are. And I'm not one for. I'm very well known for speaking my mind, by the way, Paul. And I'm not very good people. I'm just touching on people, by the way. One thing that we do not see in the clubs is we do not see hundreds of people in the background who are just watching you as well. So
That's right, yeah.
You're down there conducting a match with two players, but there's thousands of people at home watching you on television, and there's hundreds of people in the audience, and you're listening to all these noises in the background, just like the players, when the phones are going off and they're they're muttering to themselves, or sometimes they're fighting with their wives in the audience, for some strange reason. So you've got to put up with all that. You've got to turn around and say, would you be quiet, please? Would you be quiet? Ronnie's on the shot. Would you please be quiet? So you've got to conduct yourself in a nice way. Me personally, I'll just say, shut up! Shut up! Don't get on with it. So I wouldn't have lost a second in the profession. But,
there's times I've wanted to do that, trust me.
Why don't you just shut up and let the boys get on with it,
Yeah, well, that's what you think. I mean, people pay a lot of money to come and watch snooker matches, particularly look at the Crucible. There could be a couple of lads have come in, they've had a couple of beers in the afternoon, perhaps they could only get an evening ticket, they've paid 40, 50 quid each. I don't want to be throwing them out if they don't behave. I want them to enjoy their night and get their money's worth. But they've also got to remember that it's worth a lot more to the players. And if they can't give them the common courtesy of just sitting there and watching the game, then, it's got to be dealt with. I mean, I haven't had anybody ejected from an arena now for, probably 2 or 3 seasons. And again, like I said, I don't take pleasure from calling fouls. I don't take pleasure from having people thrown out. But, the time comes when that needs to be done every now and again. And, again, it's all part of the experience and what we have to deal with. I think that's what makes the Crucible such a great venue, because we could have so many more problems than we do. The people who go to the Crucible and pay the money generally are snooker fans. I think if the Crucible was a bit more like Ali Pali, where it's in London, it's an event now, it's become a place to go, a place to be seen. They're not really snooker fans, and we do have a lot more problems there, but it's not as intimate as the Crucible, so you can get away with a bit more as well.
Well, I never nearly got away with it at the Northern Ireland Open there. I nearly got thrown out, actually, Paul. I was sitting beside 2 lads who I know very well. The fellow to my left was called Patrick Wallace, and the guy to my right was Gordon Brown. Yeah. And they both got me really, really drunk. And they took me in the afternoon. All I was a little bit loud, Paul. I was just a tiny, wee little bit loud. And I got a tap on the shoulder and say, if you don't keep your voice down, sir, you're going to have to leave. And all Patrick Wallace did was laugh. That's all he did. No.
I can't imagine Patrick bought the beer that day, man. It must have been you paying it.
Never seen that man drink so much in all my life,
Really?
It's graceful to be around, He's not very funny either. I've had him on here, by the way,
All right, okay.
Next time, But yes, the stresses of the crowd can be a huge amount of pressure on you. But what is your most embarrassing moment while refereeing a match? That's one of the questions, by the way, that was sent in to me, Paul.
I've had a couple. It depends what you mean by embarrassing. I mean, I made a mistake once. Luckily, I realised I'd done it before the next shot was played, and I corrected it. That was one of my first times at the Crucible, where it was Jimmy White playing James Wattener, and Jimmy had played a shot. He'd potted a brown and cannoned into the blue. He had to knock the blue out, and he potted the brown and he knocked the blue in. So I've called the foul, as you do, and I've got the blue out and everything ready, and I've looked and I thought, oh, that's a free ball. So I've got down and I've had a look and I've awarded the free ball, and the 2 players have accepted it. Watton has nominated, I think he nominated pink, and he's got down to play it. And I've then looked and thought, Christ, where's the brown? And he potted the brown and the blue, and I'd only got the blue back out. And like neither player had realised. It was one of those things. It was in the moment, it was quite tense. So I managed to stop James playing the shot and said, look, guys, I'm sorry, I've made a mistake here. And they both realised that they hadn't picked up either, and we put the brown back and we carried on. There was no great shakes other than perhaps disturbing a bit of concentration. So that could have been a career-ending moment. It's certainly one of the embarrassing ones. And then there was another one again at the Crucible, because if you're going to make a mistake, you might as well do them in the home of snooker, hadn't you? And it was a couple of seasons ago with Sean Murphy playing, and I've decided he's potted a black, and I think he had a little bit of a kick on it. And although he didn't ask for the balls to be cleaned, I thought I'll just have a look and see if there's a mark on the black. And squeezed it as you would, and it just flew out of my hand. And it just happened that the other table wasn't playing, the wall was up, and it went from one side of the crucible to the other. So I've ran across and managed to stop it going under the table, picked it up, walked back, put it on the spot, and Sean, being Sean, just sort of sidled up to me, but made sure my microphone picked it up and said, "I think you got away with that, mate. Nobody saw it." So,
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely marvelous.
yeah.
But actually, Paul, just touching on that a wee second, see this business of making mistakes. Say you were spotting, say you were respotting the ball or putting the black of the peg nearest its spot for every reason. All of a sudden, the ball drops out of your hands and the reds go all over the place. You know, I mean, what happens then? What happened?
You've just got to try and put them back where you think they were. If you've got the video replay system that we've got, you can spend a long time on it. I think in those circumstances, if you had to put 5 or 6 balls back and it was your fault, as long as they go back in a cluster and you're going to get them roughly in the right place, everybody would just agree and get on with it. That is, for me, if I was ever going to have sleepless nights and nightmares about things, it would be that one. It's dropping a ball in the pack, because as soon as you, don't forget, we've got gloves on when we're doing these things. When you're in the club, the balls are generally a bit sticky and dirty anyway, and they're quite easy to handle. When we've got gloves on and the balls have got a beautiful finish on them and they're only used for 3 or 4 matches and we get rid of them, and every time that you know that you've got to get that ball into the back of the pack and you're positioning it, all of a sudden you hear the zoom go on the overhead camera and you know that's coming right in on you. Then you see the one floor camera come on your face to get the reaction when you've dropped it, and you've got all these things to contend with. So and people do love seeing us get it wrong. So
Paul, I would run out the building. See if I dropped that cue ball and all those roads went flying on that super fine cloth all over the place. I would run out the building. I would never come back. I'm done.
Well, I've not done it yet. I might have the same reaction. You don't know. If I do it one day, we'll find out.
Terrible, terrible moment. But yes, no, a lot of pressure there, and I think that I think for guys who are interested in getting involved with refereeing, I suppose it's one of those things to be aware of. I mean, is it better for them to maybe, before they get into considering getting some training to become a professional referee, is it better to sort of referee some matches at local clubs to make sure you don't make mistakes, because you need to come in at an entry level knowing that you're pretty...
Absolutely. Yeah, you can start learning the rules at any level. I think it's the thing you should do. There are simplified forms of the rules that you can find on YouTube and various books that people have written. It's well worth getting hold of one of those and just getting the basics. I think for the learning point of it, we've got a very good system now. I mean, when I took my exam, 1986, I took my first exam. I basically went to my examiner's house and he had a little 3-foot table. And we did the whole thing in an hour and a half, and he failed me. So it wasn't one of my most memorable experiences, but he actually told me afterwards, when I went back, he had to wait a month to retake the exam, a bit like a driving test, I suppose. And I went back a month later and he didn't re-examine me. He just handed me a certificate and said the only reason I failed you was because I thought at your age you were doing it for all the wrong reasons and I didn't think you were keen enough. But the fact that you've come back, well done, here's your certificate, you're a class 3 referee, which was lovely at the time. We're a lot more advanced than that now. We've got examiners, tutors, we've got assessors in different areas, and all through the amateur game, no matter what area of the UK and many other areas in the world as well you live, you can always find somebody that will quite happily give you a bit of help with this. They'll tell you to get a book, they'll take you through the basics, we'll run a seminar for you. The seminars can take anything from 3 to 5 or 6 hours, depending on the level that you play and the knowledge that you've got. We'll then send you away for a week, 2 weeks, however long it is, and then set up an exam for you. So I think before you put yourself through that, I mean, obviously learn the rules, but before you go through the seminar, just go wherever your local league is. If you have a Friday night league like I grew up with in Newport in South Wales, every Friday we had a 5-game league. 4 games of singles, game of doubles was always on third. Nobody ever wanted to referee the doubles game, obviously. But, the team players got involved. They all refereed. A lot of them did it leaning against the wall with a pint in their hand. But you can take it a step further. You can try and do it the way that we do it and see if it's you. And if it isn't something that you think you can do, then don't get involved with it. Don't put yourself through it.
So what's the first step for some of these young lads out here who are really seriously interested in getting involved with World Snooker?
Well, if you want to get involved with World Snooker, you've got to be a qualified referee first. We don't actually train anybody. We will take people in who are recommended to us or who hold a valid certificate, and we can find out who their examiner are. We'll speak to the examiner. We prefer people to have done a Class 2 exam, which means you'll have been a qualified referee for at least 2 years. But we have taken Class 3 referees on if they're very keen and if people say they're good enough at what they do. So the entry level, if you like, would be to apply to come to Q School, which we've just played while the World Championship was on. Q School is the opening ground. This year was, I think it was, I don't know what the right phrase is. I wouldn't say lucky, but it was unlucky for a lot of people because of the COVID travel regulations. It's the only way in for anybody, no matter where you are in the world. And we tend to get a lot of referees from mainland Europe come over to Q School. And of course, they couldn't travel this year. So it opened up a lot more spaces for UK-based referees. And we put the word out that there were something like 18 spaces available, and they were filled very, very quickly from people who may not have ever thought of trying to work for World Snooker or going to Q School. And they came along and, on the whole, they did a very, very good job. It's a very unrewarding job, as most people know. You don't get paid a lot, and you don't get a lot of thanks. But that is the opening way in, and I really hope now we had a couple of the Welsh lads came down, we had a couple of Scottish guys, the bulk of them were the English because of course they've got more members anyway, in mainland UK. But they all found out what it was all about, and they've all done a good job. So that is the way in, really, is to get yourself asked into Q School.
Paul, I have to be completely honest with you here. I prefer the ladies. Now, I'm not. I know what you're thinking. Because you're thinking what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking that at all. I think the ladies are very relaxed. They're better looking, but they are better looking. They're much better looking.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But these girls are terrific. They're terrific, and they're very young. They're much younger than me. I mean, I'm young, but they're much younger than me, and they don't make any mistakes.
No.
And I've spoken to some of them. I've spoken to some of them at the tournaments, and they're very keen. They love traveling. They love coming over. So this ladies thing, when did this ladies thing, come in? And, I see, am I right in thinking it's sort of half and half at the moment in terms of...
No, I think there's still a few more male than female out there. But if you look at the amateur circuit, then there's a hell of a lot more male than female, So when they're getting into our game, I think the girls are very dedicated. I'll drop some of the names in for you. Obviously, Desislav has done very well. He's just done the World Championship, did the Champions final, back in October. I think she's... No, and then, of course, Tatiana. Tatiana's doing Champs this year. And then we've got some that, that don't make it on television so often. You've got Prolatina Velichkova, another Bulgarian girl. You've got Gosia Kanieska, who's from Poland. We've got Monika Sulkowska, who's Polish but now lives in the UK. And all these girls have been very dedicated. A lot of them they're more Q sports referees. They've been involved in pool in the early days and then progressed to snooker. So they sort of learned to control the crowd and what the setup and everything is through the pool. And then they learn the finer parts of the game through the snooker. So they've all come through individual associations. We've had people recommend them to us. We've brought them over, given them a chance. They're all very dedicated and they're all very good. So, it's great to see them.
I presume that most of these guys, ladies and gentlemen, are very much interested in snooker. Are most of them genuinely interested in snooker who come in as referees and train?
I think so, yeah. We travel the world together. I've been out to China on a few trips with the girls. We've done a lot of jobs in Europe with them. Whereas I try to sort of distance myself a little bit from the game. If I'm not in work, I don't want to go to a snooker club because I might as well just stay in work. They just love it. They can't get enough. They have a night off. They're looking for a snooker club or a pool hall to go down to and spend the night in there, which is pretty much the way I was when I was younger. Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know. But they do love the game. They're so keen. And I think that's why they do so well, because it means so much to them. They're certainly not in it, as I said, they're not in it for the money. Because you don't earn a lot, it's obviously they get a bit of television exposure, and it is quite nice when you get stopped and sign an autograph now and again, and that's the benefits of doing a good job, and they deserve all that. So
So that just touching on the training there, Paul, but we sort of got away from it a wee bit there. So am I right in thinking is it EPSB who are carrying out the training for?
Yeah, the EPSB they're coming up with a new scheme. Everything's been held up, I think, because of the COVID. Obviously, with the rule book that was delayed. They had a lot of ideas. There was a lot of meetings going on around this time last year, and maybe a bit later, because I know I had a chat with Simon Beresford up in York last year at the UK. And they've got a scheme they want to put together, not a residential scheme as such, but I think it involves an overnight. There'll be a sort of a meeting on a Friday or a Saturday, and a chat and a few different seminars set up about different parts of it. They take it to a different level as well, because we're involved in the amateur game. With the times that we're in, you need to make sure that you've got the right people. So we do look at people's backgrounds. They can be, I think they used to call it a CRB check. It's a bit different now, but they can carry out those sort of things, make sure everybody's in it for the right reasons. They've had a great success with the coaching scheme. It's the same people behind it. Chris Lovell, who did a fantastic job there for WPBSA with the coaching. He's involved in the setup of this new scheme. And, we commented about Brendan more earlier, but, Brendan's been heavily involved. He's put a lot of time and effort into it as sort of one of the senior examiners. Well, I think he's the senior examiner for England. Doesn't mean to say he's done it right, obviously, but, he's put a lot of time in, and it's going to be a good scheme. I think a lot of people will, that they can benefit from it. I'm involved with the Welsh side of things. I was only recently made an examiner in Wales. We're going to do things a little bit differently because we don't think we get enough bodies. We're just looking at recruitment at the moment. We've got examiners on the ground who are going to go to the tournaments. We've got quite a good amateur ranking system going now in Wales. A lot of tournaments. There was a under 14s event held last weekend. We've actually got under 14s ranking list now. That's how popular it is. And we'll talk to people that turn up at these events. They're the ones that like the game, and see if they're interested in becoming referees, because there is a shortage. Even in England, where I said they've got quite a few, there's quite a few people with certificates, but you need those people to turn up and do the job. So the more you get, the better it is.
A very tough process, though, Paul. I can't imagine it being easy to get through the examinations.
I think with the first examination, if you're keen, your examiner will do all he can to get you through it. I mean, he won't pass you if you're not up to it. But the Class 3 exam is quite basic. It's all the basic rules. And then when you get to your Class 2 and your Class 1, which are the next stages of it, it's 2 years before you can take your Class 2. But in those 2 years, you've got to work. And then, as I said at the beginning, you need experience. That's the most important thing. You've got to get experience and you've got to concentrate. So if you've done 2 years of amateur matches, even if you only do, I don't know, maybe one Sunday a month, you can pop out and do 2 games in one of the amateur championships. You've gained plenty of experience then, you've learned a lot. And then it's up to you where you go from there. Once you've got those basics, if you're prepared to work, then you will make your way through the system.
No, a difficult process indeed, probably lengthy as well, but I'm sure the best will come through. And, if guys, if you're really interested in professional refereeing, this is start the information we've just given you as a place to start. And I'm sure a lot of you are very, very interested. Again, just like Paul said, generally it's not financially very, very rewarding, but it's if you're really, really keen and interested and you want to get in the limelight, then it's one way forward. In Brendan's case, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 10 steps back. I don't know what it is with people. Why do they not like Brendan? Why do they prefer you? I don't understand that.
They've obviously got taste. That's what it is.
Yeah, Brendan's a wee bit dull. He's okay. He's all right. That's why he's the best. You can't.
It's a good job he's off Facebook now. It really is.
This is what it is, because you can't be the best at everything. Brendan is the best because he's not very exciting. That's all right. Don't worry about it. Sorry, Brendan. I like to tell the truth about people. I love you. I love you. It's okay. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'll answer some of your questions towards the end of this, because we're just going to touch on a couple of little controversial things. Okay, you ready for this, Paul?
I'm ready.
We're going to talk about something that's very controversial, and a lot of referees have different opinions on this.
Okay. We're
going to talk about the miss rule.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure what you're allowed to say to me about this. You don't need to get personal, but I don't like it, Paul. I'm not happy about it. I think that, that there's times when we know that a player is playing a deliberate miss, It doesn't happen anymore because of the missed rule. The missed rule has excluded that problem. Okay, we'll all agree with that. But the missed rule has created a lot of other problems. So can you give us your view on that?
Yeah, the miss rule is the most discussed rule, obviously. It's the one I get the most questions about. I think we're at the point in the game now where if we've got 128 players on the main tour, or where they open up with, you know, different concessionary wildcards up to 144 players, if you talk to the players, they haven't really got a problem with it. I think most of them accept it because it's pretty fair across the board. There are some situations where I would perhaps like to see the miss not be called every time. You know, but then that's up to a referee's judgment. Unfortunately, I think the position the referees are in, if you call the miss, you can never be wrong. If you don't call it, then you can get slaughtered for it. So they might edge on, if there's a 50-50, they'll probably edge on calling it. But as long as they're consistent with it, that's, I think, all anybody can ask. What you've got to remember is the miss rule was brought in because the rule book says that you must make your best effort to hit the ball on. Now, there's a lot of scenarios where players miss a ball by a 16th of an inch or whatever, and somebody says, oh, that's so harsh. Well, the first one is if you drop short on it, you're always going to be called a miss. So if you're half a millimetre short, drop it into a pack of reds, there's no discretion there. The referee has to call it. That is the guidelines that are issued to us from the pro game. If you've gone past it and missed it by a millimetre, slightly different story. But then again, if you've got a one cushion escape, you're a professional snooker player. You should hit the ball on. If you miss it and the ball is safe, it's going to stay safe. If you hit it, you might knock it on. So you're always going to edge on the side of missing it. Okay, that's human nature. I'll give you a scenario. There was one that was brought up recently with, I think it was in the World Championship, was that Anthony McGill was playing. It was a deciding frame. And he's got a one cushion escape. Now, he knows he can hit the ball, right? If I said to him, if you don't hit this ball, I'm going to fine you 10 grand, he was going to hit it every time. Okay? Now, that's where the rule book says you've got to make your best effort to hit the ball on. Now, in the interest of being a professional sportsman and not wanting to lose a frame because he hit it and left it on, he elected to play it in a way that he was going to hit it the way he wanted to. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's absolutely the right thing to do as a professional sportsman. But that's why the miss rule is there. If you're going to favour, or the referee believes that you favoured hitting it in the way that you're not going to give away a huge advantage, and I don't like using the word advantage because we deliberately kept that out of the rule book on purpose, because you don't have to give an advantage away, but it's the easiest way to describe it. So if I said you've got to hit that, he's going to hit it every time. If he plays within the rules and tries to hit it in a way that he may leave it safe, then the other player, the player that laid the snooker, deserves to get something from that. So that is what the miss rule is all about. And I can also say with the players as well, if they don't believe it was a miss, if they think the referee shouldn't have called it, then don't take it. You know, I had an incident in the World Championships where I gave a free ball. The player wasn't sure. Both players had a look and they said, actually, we don't think it is. Well, fine. They did exactly the right thing. They didn't take it. I'm not going to stand there and argue with both players. In my opinion at the time, and I still say it, I thought it was a free ball. They said it wasn't, but they played in the spirit of the game. And I think that's, you know, that's what we need to happen now. You know, a few of the players, I say, I read the social media, everybody's very critical of the miss rule. 90% of people are. You read the player's perspective on the miss rule, it's not actually that bad. That's my side of it. What do you think?
No, it's a very good side of it, and it's explained very, very clearly. I think I have the same view with the miss rule. I run tournaments, as you know, and very often when I'm sitting in the background on my third bottle of wine, they come up to me and say, "Dave, would you come down here and take a look at this? There's, you know, what the hell's going on?" I didn't say what was going on, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, there are going to be occasions when you have to be discretionary. You have to make a decision. And ultimately, it's your decision, and you have to make it. There's situations within the miss rule where perhaps if it's possibly going to be called in a situation where you cannot hit the object ball. I mean, we're talking about scenarios, and I've been in these positions many, many times, usually after the second bottle of wine, where I can't get the cue ball out of a cluster of reds. You know, I've nominated my colour or whatever. You know, sometimes players get themselves boxed in the reds. And it's impossible. It's impossible. So,
but there is a rule to cover that.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. If you think that it's hittable, if you decide to play out of a gap, so you can just get the cue ball out and you play it that way and you say yellow, you're telling the referee that you think you can hit that yellow. So if you come out of that scenario, really, you're telling him you can hit it, so he's going to call a miss. There is a rule that says if the ball on is impossible to hit, then you have to play the cue ball with sufficient strength to reach the ball on if it wasn't for the intervening balls. Now, if you do that, the referee's never going to call a miss on you because you've then all agreed that it was impossible to hit.
Okay.
So again, that's a scenario that a lot of people don't, obviously they don't think of, but it is covered in the rules. If it's impossible, then there is a rule to cover that situation.
See, Paul, I didn't do that. I'll tell you what I did, and my opponent didn't like it. You know what I did, don't you? I just went up and I went, I can't get out of this mess. What am I going to do? I can't get out of this. So I just put the cue up and just went, I've got to play something. So I just popped the red. And he went, that's a foul. At least you could do is try and move the balls out to attempt to hit the red. I said, well, I can't hit the red. I can't hit the colour or whatever. I can't play the shot. But as you said, he has to make an effort to get out. So does that mean that I have to hit those balls hard and break that cluster of reds to get to my object ball?
No, technically, if you can just take one out of the equation, I mean, as long as playing it in the line that you play it and the direction you're playing it, because you don't have to play directly. You can also play directly or indirectly, which means you can either play straight at the ball or you could play to hit the ball playing it off a cushion. So say you're in a scenario where there's a cluster of reds and you're right in the middle of it. If you've got a line and you can say, right, off one cushion there, I can hit yellow if that red wasn't there, and you play the cue ball out on that line with enough strength to reach the yellow ball, then the referee shouldn't call a miss because you've all agreed it's an impossible situation and you've played to go that way. Now, I say there's very often situations in the amateur game where the two players might sort it out in the car park later, and that's probably one of those. You know, if the opponent felt you should have gone through them because you could have got to the pink, well, all right, he's entitled to think that, but that's not what the rule book says. You know, the rule book says that you have to play with sufficient strength to reach a colour that you nominate. So,
which you're not going to hit that because you want to hit the reds first. You've nominated your colour, and you know.
Yeah, you're always going to hit the red first because you're in impossible snooker, aren't you? But
unless there's a rock below the ball and it comes up and flies across the top of the table, there's no way you're going to have that ball.
No, well, that's right. But I mean, if you imagine as well in that scenario, then say the black's on the spot. Who's ever going to nominate black and play directly to black and give 7 away? Oh. Everybody's going to nominate a bulk colour and play the white up the other end of the table.
Yeah.
And the rule, you know, there are times when the rule is there for your advantage as well. And I think that's one of them, you know. And again, as I said, if you don't know the rules, you can't use them to your advantage. That's why I think all the players should spend time to learn the rules.
Now, there's the misrule, guys. Explain. Okay, so no more arguments. Just buy each other drinks and forget about it. Set the ball up again and just enjoy your snooker, you know. Unless, of course, you're playing for 250 grand. That's a completely different story altogether. And it's up to him to decide what to do. You know. Yeah. Very tricky one, that, the misrule. Do you think, though, Paul, there's ways we can improve the misrule? I mean, are you allowed to talk about that? I mean, do you think there's... I mean, do you all sit down together every so often in your meeting? I'm sure that you do.
Yeah, we do.
And discuss situations where, you know what, we need to talk about this again because there's no clarity here. We need to maybe reconsider the rule, like potentially what you did with not calling a miss when you could draw. I mean, that was a good decision. It was probably a long time coming, that decision.
Yeah, I just got on the rules committee shortly after that changed, when it changed badly, you know, when it went the other way, before it was changed back. And I could never see why. I never understood that. It was put forward by a couple of players to the rules committee. The players were very loud in their intentions of getting this rule changed, and I think a few of the referees and the advisors on the rules committee backed down and changed it. And then I won't name him because it's not fair, but I mean I know it was done for the right reasons. But one of the players who probably made the most noise about it, after seeing 2 or 3 tournaments of it being played the other way, said, "Christ, I think I got that wrong." You know, and we thought, well, bloody hell, it's gone to the Players' Commission now. It's gone to the Rules Committee. There's been like 12 months of consultation over this. We've changed it. Now you admit you had it wrong. But at least that person had the bottle to say, look, I've got it wrong. And then he was quite quite vocal in getting it changed back and holding his hand up. So things like that happen. And when you asked about us sitting down, we sit as a group of referees, we discuss situations, but we involve the Players Commission.
Yes.
So we've got to
bring that up.
There's a great Players Commission there now. You've got the players who are all with the right spirit. I'm pretty sure now there's Mark Davis, Joe Perry, Sean Murphy, just to name a few, who are very interested in the game. They've got the game's interests at heart. And, we involve them whenever we can. We'd never make a rule change without putting it to the players. And anything the players come to us with, we will always consider it. I'd like to think now with this rewrite on the rule book that took us 2 years, we had probably 5 years worth of complaints and comments to review, which we did. We had a great group of about 15, 16 referees of a very high standard involved. We brought a lot of players in. We used both Jason Ferguson and Martin Clark as ex-players, but, Martin's now tournament director. Jason's chairman of the WPBSA. So we had lots of perspectives, and I don't think there's many rules that will need changing from now on, because I think we've covered everything. You ask about the misrule, obviously, there's nothing I can't discuss. I do know there are 1 or 2 players within the game at the moment that are quite keen on the ball in hand rule. They're talking about maybe after a third miss, picking the cue ball up and playing it from anywhere on the table. Right. I personally think in the modern game, the way it's played, I think that's too big an advantage. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. I'm prepared to discuss it further with people, and I might be swayed to a different opinion. But as things stand at the moment, I even think with the modern game, with the standard of players, I think the free ball could possibly be reviewed, because I think that's too big an advantage. Mm-hmm. But the free ball is such an integral part of the game, because when you're playing for snookers, if people 44 behind with 1 red left, there's actually only really 1 snooker and a free ball. Mm-hmm. You take the free ball out, okay, it might speed games up, but it's the name of the game is snooker at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a lot wrong with the game, if I'm honest with you, the way it's played as a spectator sport. I think most things are all right. But that's something that I think the players will come to us in the short term, because there's a lot of discussions. Whether we take it any further, I don't know, but time will tell.
So is that basically how you make decisions? The Players Commission or the Players Group would come in, and you guys would come in, and you would sit down and discuss a situation or a decision, and then you would obviously vote on it to change it. And that
we wouldn't have a vote straight away. We'd all go away and have a think about it, because any decision we make, is in long term. It's going to be there forever. So we wouldn't have a meeting and come out of it with a decision unless we knew there was a glaring error in the rules and somebody found it. But nobody's found one like that in sort of 70 or 80 years of playing with a proper set of rules. But if somebody came up with a very good idea, we wouldn't dismiss it because we didn't like it. We will sit, we'll have a chat, we'll debate it, we'll go away. We'll arrange to have a chat again, even if we can't physically meet in the current conditions. Zoom is a wonderful thing. I'd never used Zoom before the lockdown, but we've been in some very interesting meetings on different things using that, and that's the process we go down. But it's not a decision that's purely made by referees. The whole thing with the misrule, that never came about from referees. That came about from players. Mm-hmm. Players wanted that, and the players wrote the rule to start with and got the referees to enforce it.
Well, that's the way That's the way when I bring players, we're going to be talking about tournament directing, because we're already nearly up the bloody hour. I can't believe time flies. Are
we really?
Oh, me, Paul, it's me. Anyway, the thing is, you just don't. Anyway, getting back to directing tournaments now. You're not only a professional referee on the tour, but you're also one of the very few of you in there that actually direct the tournament. So tell us a wee bit about what that involves for you.
We've got a senior tournament director who's Mike Ganley, who was son of the famous Len Ganley, the referee. Mike's been involved for probably longer than me now. I think he probably got involved in the late 80s at different levels in the media office and as a scorer and different things. And he progressed through as a tournament director, and you're basically responsible for virtually everything to do with the tournament. If we're looking at a new venue somewhere, anywhere in the world, it's Mike that will go along and have a look, and he knows what the broadcasters want. He'll check the ceiling's the right height to hang the lights and high enough to put the seating platforms in. He'll make sure the measurements are right, because you need a certain measurement for a TV set. You need other measurements if you're only going to use outside table sets. You've got to look at where the openings and the players' entrances are for people coming in and blocking sight lines, and then spectator access. There's so much involved, and it needs somebody who understands the game really to be involved in all that. And we've got Mike for that. Now that takes up a lot of Mike's time because we travel so much around the world now, and there's so many tournaments. So whereas originally it was Mike and Martin Clark, who I mentioned earlier, they were the two senior TDs. I took a break from the game when it all went a little bit wrong, when we had a very poor administration with Sir Rodney Walker and Tony Murphy and Jim McMahon were people who I'm sure had the right interests of the game at heart, but they didn't deliver what people wanted. And I was very, very disillusioned after working so hard to get where I was. I'd just done the world final. And I couldn't make a living. They wanted me to give up everything to be at their beck and call. And I was very well quoted at the time. I had a mate working in Tesco's was earning more than me. And it just wasn't right the way the game was going. We had a little band of full-time referees. We had 2 pay cuts imposed on us in a very short amount of time, and we were treated quite badly. But anyway, I went away for a few years. I couldn't work under those conditions. I did a few different things, and then Barry Hearn got involved. So I had a phone call because I'd carried on working with the Premier League, through my time away from the main tour. And part of the deal with me coming back was to be one of the tournament directors, because I thought that is part of my future in the game. I'm going to get to my early mid-50s or whatever, and probably my refereeing days will be over, but I'll need to work longer than that, before my pensions kick in, and I need to make a living. So I got to 50 a few weeks ago, and I'm really glad I thought about it now.
I do my homework,
Ah, right, okay.
Here, I don't know what it's like to be 50, but I'll get there. I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll look forward to hearing from you then. Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I came back then, was to be trained up as a TD, and it was great because I got to learn from Mike. Mike had done so much over the years. He basically, everything that had happened, he'd seen it, he'd dealt with it, and very much so with Martin, he passed his knowledge on, and they both passed their knowledge on to me. Gary Wilkinson, another great ex-player, he was involved a little bit. I don't think he was quite as dedicated as I see. He's in the running side of things. He loves being involved, but there's a big level of responsibility when you're a TD as well, because you're in charge of all the rules. You do have to discipline the players at times, only because if there's a problem, it's they're advised beforehand of what the rules are. If they don't want to play by the rules, then they can't play. So there are certain things we have to enforce with that. And that's it. We do a day-to-day running of a tournament. We generally turn up 2, maybe 3 days before a major ranking event. We've taken on the role of installing the scoring system that we've got. Mainly because we need to have faith in that, and it's not that I don't trust anybody else to put it in, but if you're going to be responsible for something that's so critical, then it's nice to have put it in yourself and know exactly how it all works. So between us, that's what we do, and of course we're leapfrogging them because there's so many tournaments. You might see an event finish on Sunday night with a big grand final and somebody wins and we're not back on telly till the following week. Well, the odds are the following morning we're actually on somewhere else setting up for the qualifying event and playing the qualifiers before you see us back on TV again. So it's very much full on, and we've all got families at home as well, and we do need a little bit of time off in between. So we team up and we leapfrog. Jan Verhaas has been a bit involved now. He helps out as an assistant tournament director. Brendan Moore helps out with Q School recently. We brought Leo Scullion into the equation and Colin Humphreys. So it's all the referees.
Will you tell him to get rid of the bloody beard? He looks about 80. Tell him I said that, by the way. He's terrible. Get rid of that beard. If he looks like this, he's okay. It's okay. If it looks like this, it's okay. But it doesn't look. He looks old. Paul, he looks really, really old. You tell him.
Well, he's only 54, I think, yeah, and he's still got a few years left yet. So
what? Are you serious?
Yeah. He looks a lot older.
62.
I think it's the whole going bald and the beard. It doesn't do people a lot of favours, that, does it? Especially when the beard's grey.
Don't start picking on me. I brought you on here. Why you all end up picking on me all of a sudden? I'm just trying to.
Well, it's only me and you here. I'm not going to pick on myself, am I?
As far as the rest of them. Sean Murphy did it. Mark Davis did it. Stuart Bigham did it. And now you're doing it. Just leave me. Don't pick on me.
You need to find a better class of guest. That's what you need to do.
Yes, and I've yet to find him or her. I've got to get some ladies on here. I'll get some ladies on. So, yeah, I'll tell you what, you've actually surprised me there, Paul. You've surprised me because I thought directing a tournament would have been dealing mostly with the players rather than all this technical stuff, because
We do on a day-to-day basis. We do with the players on a day-to-day, but there's a lot more involved in the build-up to the events as well. It's a whole role. It involves everything about setting up. And then once we actually start play on the first morning, that's when the job gets a little bit easier, because all you're doing is dealing with the players and the referees. With the whole nations events, they're a very good format, but they're very busy. You play 127 matches in 7 days across 8 tables. You've got a television table to take into account with the scheduling. You've got a stream table. You've got timings. You've got all sorts to look at. The referees have got to be rotated. And there's a lot going on. And it takes 2 TDs. We do work together all day, every day for that. There's so many jobs and so many roles. Again, I don't want to praise the players too much, because I think I'm being false, but I'm not. They are professional. They understand what we do. They understand what it takes to put these tournaments on. And on the whole, they're very well behaved. They fall in. I won't say fall into line. That's not right, because we do build things around them. But they know what's required, and they fit into the big jigsaw and make it complete.
So they bloody should. I mean, I charge them £10 a head, Paul. I get criticised for charging a player £10 a head. I told Jason this on the phone, right? And he said, we couldn't afford you, Dave. You take a £10 a head off a player. 128 players on the. You'd be earning more money than me. I said, no way.
I'd love to do that. And I like that idea, £10 a player. I don't think we get away with it, but I like the sound of it.
Well, all the players know I charge them £10 a head, but I've got to put up with all their crap, Paul. Have you any idea? See, this is what I'm getting back to directing a tournament meant. I've got to collect their money. I've got to deal with all their crap on the phone. I've even got to sort out some of their marriages, Honestly, it's absolutely disgraceful. They're terrible. They're like a bunch of school kids, and they know what I'm talking about, by the way, Paul. They know what I'm talking about, No, I think it's organising the players, for me. It's organising the players, getting a good venue, and keeping everybody happy and dealing with the players. For me, it's about the players. If players are happy. If they come to a club and they play on a pro-am outside the tour, I want to bring them back to that club, and I have to be there. Doesn't matter how I behave. You can imagine how I behave already. But I mean, as long as you're there for them, and they're playing at a good club and it's a good tournament and they enjoy themselves and they're playing very competitive snooker. And that's where I feel my £10 a head is given. You're giving them that service in that respect. On the other hand, if players are paying for playing one qualifying match for $2 or $3 grand, it's very, very tough. And I haven't actually talked about the players on the tour, but in that respect, I mean, I'm sure the referees are actually quite sympathetic in a way with a lot of the lower ranked players who are really, really struggling on the tour, to come through. And I don't know where it's your place to give a view on players on the tour, but if you're allowed to, Paul, I mean, do you have any views on the players who are struggling on the tour, or ways that can be improved? Or
I don't know about ways to improve it. I mean, I've got a certain degree of sympathy for these players, because obviously, if I go to work, I get paid. It doesn't matter whether I win or lose, if you like. I know for a day's work what I'm going to earn. But that they sign up for a different deal. They've got the potential to earn a heck of a lot of money, with more likely the probability that they're not going to earn a lot. Now, all right, we don't charge entry fees anymore, because that used to be a big issue with players coming through from Q School. Suddenly had to find best part of $2 grand to pay the entry fees for the season. So we don't do that anymore, but they've still got a hell of a lot of expenses. The setup that Barry and his team brought in, he says, I don't reward losers or mediocrity, which is fair enough. So, we all know that if you lose in the first round, you don't get a penny. You're out of pocket. You've lost your petrol money. You've lost your hotel. And I do sympathise with players on that, but it was never a secret. That's the only thing I can say, is that they signed up for it and they've gone along and done it. I've said publicly on more than one occasion that the worst tournament of the year for me is the World Championship qualifiers. There are so many people love that event because it means so much. But I've seen so many players' careers end at those qualifiers, and they're players that I've spent 2 seasons with and may have travelled with, have spent a lot of time with. And I know that all they ever wanted to be was professional snooker players. And when that is like their last hurrah and they lose a match and they're off tour, some of them, if they're young enough, they go straight back into Q school. They might get straight back on tour again. Hopefully things will click. And 2 years later, they won't be going down the same route. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. So I do feel for the players at the bottom end of the tour, that they've all got the chance. They've all got the potential. I mean, God, they can all play. We watch them on practice tables and think, well, Christ, how aren't you winning matches? But the reality of it is, of all the players on tour, only half of them can win in the first round. That's all about professional sport. So
I've been banging that in them for a few years now, Paul. I mean, I think there's too many professionals on the tour. I think there should be a 64-player professional tour and perhaps another 128-player amateur tour, and with qualifiers, with open events. But not everybody agrees with that, and that's okay. That's just my opinion, because when I look at the tour players, and I'm not going to put you on the spot with this, by the way, because it's not appropriate, but the thing is that I look at the tour like a business platform, and I see that about a third, three sections of player on the tour. I see the top 32 who are much better than the rest of them. They're like way huge divisions above in terms of standard and consistency. And then there's that bubble in the middle who are just going to stay around there and just make a living. And then you've got maybe 32 players, possibly a few more at the bottom, who will never make enough to live on. They may as well be claiming universal credit or something while they're playing, because they're not going to make enough living. And for me, that's a bad business. You have a section of players there that shouldn't be there in that group, and I'm not taking anything away from them. They have got ability, but are they as good? Are they good enough to make a living on the tour? I don't think so. But look, that's just looking at figures and looking at the money they make over a period of time. And that's just it doesn't mean anything. So that's why I say to players who, 4 of my Pro-Am winners got on the tour this year playing my Pro-Am.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel great about that, because I feel as if I've done something. But at the same time, I say to them, okay, you got on the tour, all right, that's fine, but you need to be realistic. Are you going to make a living on the tour? Are you going to you going to do enough to make enough money? Are you going to make 100,000 a year or 70,000 a year, to pay your expenses and bills? And okay, the format of snooker is very, very good at the minute, where pretty much your qualifiers covers your costs to China, or whatever venue you're going. It's a lot easier these days than it was in the old days. And of course, Barry Hearn has pumped millions of pounds into the sport. It's never had it so good. Never had it so good. So I mean, people knock Barry Hearn for, maybe getting involved in a sport that maybe perhaps some people think he should have got involved in. But he's pumped millions of pounds into it. And that's what it needs. If it doesn't get it from advertising, it needs to get it from sponsorship. And that's exactly what he's done, Anyway, I've had my rant, okay? So,
okay.
We're going to get, let me see, let's just look at some of these questions here. I've got a couple on Messenger. I've got some on here. Let's have a little. Mark Fenton's asking you, what referee was your inspiration, Paul? Who was your inspiration as a referee?
I think pretty much there were 2 referees that I really looked up to, like John Williams and John Street. I thought they were both great referees, very professional, everything about them. And I was lucky enough to work with both. They were both a big help to me when I started off. Len Ganley was the personality referee. He was a good friend. He was very good to me.
Wasn't he?
He was what, sorry?
From character.
Oh, he was unbelievable bloke. I mean, even up to the, when he'd finished refereeing, he still turned up at the Crucible every year. He was making money for charity, which was why he got the MBE. He was nicking tenors off everybody coming in, and it all went into a fund, and he bought wheelchairs for disabled kids, and he was great, Len. But all there were lots of different reasons. Len was the personality, and I think John Williams and John Street were the 2 that they were the most professional. They were the ones I really, really aspired to be like.
I'm just looking at another question here. I'm trying to get the gist of it here. What do you think about refereeing in pool, which is totally different from snooker? Refs on pool are often too far away from the table, plus too many players feel entitled to argue with the referees, and the referees are not trained well enough to be secure in the calls. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of pool, to be honest. I have refereed the World 9-Ball Pool Championship when they held it in Cardiff.
I read that.
And I was involved with Michaela on that when she gave me a lot of pointers and told me the differences, if you like, between the two sports. I'd probably agree if they say that the referees are standing too far from the table, because that's what we find in snooker. We've got very good referees who may not be very confident, and until they get confident, they don't stand close to the table. There are some of them. It's a good job we put a set around the table, otherwise they'd be in the third row of the audience. And it's a confidence thing, and I think with pool that might well be the case. I don't know whether they have exams for pool. I know they've got different sets of rules depending on which area of the country you live, and I know that's a fundamental problem in people's perception of certainly of 8-ball pool. So I've not really been involved in that. I've done a bit of 9-ball, so I wouldn't like to comment on their referees really. I mean, I've worked with Michaela. She was a 9-ball referee, and I think her husband Ross was an 8-ball world champion. He was a great player, so she obviously had the pedigree. She knew what that was all about. But maybe the game needs to bring someone like her in to give a bit of coaching to some of these referees if they think there's a problem.
Let's touch on slow play. Okay, now this is an issue. It's a bit of a difficult one because some players are slow. In fact, some players are bloody awful. They're so slow you wouldn't believe it. I'm not going to mention any names here, Paul, because I don't expect you to. In fact, what the hell? You know what? I'm going to mention some names, Paul. Because you know why? Because I can get away with it. You can't. Okay? Let's start with Selby. I'm going to start with Mark Selby. He gets on my nerves. He walks around the table, he steps back, he goes forward. He's a brilliant player, fantastic technician. But I'm not picking on you, Mark. I could do worse. I could talk about Fergal O'Brien. Let's not talk about Fergal. If I was a referee and I drew Fergal's match, I would want to get away from that match straight away. He's terrible. He's an absolute nightmare. And I've told him many, many times, and he promised me he'd quicken up, Paul, next season. He's managed to get back on the tour. 1 year later, back on there. Fergal has promised me he's going to get his shot time down to 35 seconds. All right, let's talk seriously. Let's talk on slow play.
All right.
You must have had instances where you've had to say things to players.
But there have been instances. We've got to be careful with the wordings as a referee, because there's no such thing as a rule regarding slow play. There's a rule regarding time wasting, and that is the one that you can enforce. Slow play is one that you can't enforce because it's subjective. Who says who's slow and who's fast? It's one of those things that we can debate for hours on end. Now, the rule that we can get involved with as referees is deliberate slow play, and that is when you know that somebody is just taking too long to get in somebody else's head. It is something that I have spoken to players about but more so in the last couple of years, because it's become highlighted. Now we record average shot times. Now, the average shot time is only a guide. It just tells us that somebody is maybe a little bit slower than the others. We don't use the average shot time when we look at warnings. We look at situations. So if a player's got a straightforward pot, and you know that all day long, no matter what level you are, in your own standard of play, I'm refereeing the game. I know he's going to pot that red, he's going to stun the cue ball, leave himself a black, might want to finish high on the black, finish on the next red. It's not rocket science. When they're taking 45, 50 seconds over that shot, just deliberately to wind the other guy up, then that is when we have a problem, and that is when we'll speak to people. Not over one shot, you let them do it 3 or 4 times. It's a problem in the sport, because we are an entertainment sport. As I said, this is why Barry realised it was a bit of a weakness we had when we're selling the game to broadcasters, which was why the average shot time, I'll hold my hand up, I didn't agree with it when they said we're going to start publishing it. But the way they did it, and they used it more as a name and shame, I think, for some people, it worked very well. There was something like, I can't give you exact numbers only because I can't remember, but there were about 25 players on the tour that were over 30 seconds, and we said this isn't good enough. And I now think there's only something like 5 or 6. It did a very good job. It speeded certain players up. I think that there are a few players, again, I won't name them because it's not fair, but there are players who've spoken to me and said how much happier they are now they've speeded up a little bit. They feel they play better. They weren't winning when they were slow. Players have a routine. There are some players, when you talk to the other players, they go, oh, you can have a go at him because he's just like that in practice. Well, okay, if they take a very long time in practice and in matches, they're not guilty of time wasting. They're doing what they do. They are slow players, but there's no rule about it. So this is where we just got to be a little bit careful now. We can't let that creep back in. I think the worst of the problem's been dealt with by us having a quiet word. I mean, for those that don't know the rule, you can have a quiet word on one occasion with a player because you think they need to improve their approach to the certain shots, if you like. If they don't take that on board, you then give them a formal warning for time wasting. And you tell them that if I have to speak to you again, I will award a frame to your opponent. And that's the route we go down. Now, luckily, there's a few warnings been issued over the last couple of seasons, but there hasn't been any frames docked yet. So I think it's doing the right thing. As referees, we all know that we can't let time wasting become part of the game. It's not in anybody's interests, and we will do what we can within the rules to try and stop it.
Wouldn't it be great if every frame was 10 minutes? I mean, that's got to be a referee's joy, hasn't it? I mean,
it would be.
Yeah. I mean, Ronnie can hit 100 break in 3 minutes. You know, what a joy to watch. He's a pleasure to watch. All right, he's a little controversial. Who isn't? You know, nobody's perfect. Yeah. But the thing is, knocking in 100 break in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, waiting for his shot. It must have been very tough for Ronnie over the years to play some opponents who are very, very slow. I know he's had a wee bit of a needle over the years with slow play with players, but
if you look at it, it's just like any sport. If he's got a problem with players who are doing a bit of maybe deliberate time wasting, playing mind games, whatever, why tell them? Mm-hmm. You know, if you make it public, you've got a problem with that. It's going to encourage them to do it more, surely. It's a lot of psychology in it. It's up to people to deal with these things.
It just creates a bit of tension, and you don't want that. You know, and as I say, it's a professional sport. Players have got to have a bit of respect for each other. You know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I used to be a very fast player. I'm pretty slow now, you know, and Thomas tell me, what are you taking so long over the shot for? Because I've got to think about what I'm going to do, you know. Yeah. I've got to make the right choice. But the thing is, I mean, it must be a pleasure as a professional referee. I mean, it must be a pleasure if you go into a match and it runs like 40 minutes, you know.
It can be quite enjoyable. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but it can be enjoyable. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do like to see the balls potted like everybody else does. I think break building is such an important part of the game. I'm a little bit old school as well. I mean, I've refereed some frames that have been over an hour that I had no idea had taken that long. You know, if a frame pans out and it's played for the right reasons, some tactical safety play can be very good. I wouldn't want it for 8 frames out of a best of 9. But it's that part of the game has still got a place. You know, there's still a need for things to follow up. I mean, one of the big things, if you see this, and I think the commentators referred to it a few times in the World Championship, the amount of times now that the players ask you for a re-rack. I mean, it used to be like pulling teeth trying to get 2 players to agree to re-rack the balls, especially if one was 20 in front. But now the players know the way it's going. They don't want to break their own rhythm, and they'll just say to you, "Well, Paul, can we set them up?" And I think they all see the way the game is going, and that can only be a positive. When they realise, that things have to look attractive for the game to succeed.
Well, that's what we need. We need colourful characters. Quite often the most colourful characters in this sport, Paul, are the controversial ones.
Without a doubt. I think it's every sport.
Alex Higgins, Ronnie O'Sullivan, you could put them together. What would we have done without players like Alex? What would we do without players as entertaining as Ronnie? I mean, for me, there's only probably 2 or 3 or 4 players on the tour that I actually enjoy watching. And we're trying to make the sport a little bit more entertaining. I hold my hand up, Paul. I really admit that I struggle. Like, I do struggle watching pre-recorded snooker. I have to revert to these YouTube videos, where they play the shot quick, they cut.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, speed it up. Yeah.
All of a sudden, the whole match runs about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Best of 9 games. So it's great because you've got a wonderful world of that there. I mean, perhaps maybe the BBC, if they're listening to this, should take on board some of this stuff, and if they're going to have catch-up TV and they want to play a few frames back, quicken the shots up, leave the commentary out. Leave the commentators out. Dennis Taylor, Joe Johnson, all the rest of them, Dominic Dale, just cut them out, sack them, get rid of them. Get them jobs in social clubs cleaning balls. No, I don't mean that. They're all lovely boys. I would never say a bad word about them, Paul.
Okay, I'll believe you.
Anyway, Paul, we've very bad. Look, you've only had 2 sips of beer. We've run 75 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to say to the guys out there, perspiring young, did I say perspective? Perspiring? Both things, same difference. Young players or young guys that want to come in and learn how to become professional referees. Is there anything you'd like to say to them before we wrap this up?
Yeah, if anybody wants to take up refereeing, I mean, I find it very rewarding. It's a sport that I love. It's something that I'm really pleased I got involved with. I put a lot of work in the early days, and I still put quite a bit of work in now. You know, I'm one of the lucky ones that makes a living out of the game. But if you think you want to do it, by all means, have a go. There's a lot of us around who will help you. If you're based in England, the English Partnership is the place to get hold of. There's the WPBSA main offices in Bristol, White Ladies Road in Clifton. You can write to them. They've got a website. I don't actually use Messenger on Facebook because I get so many messages on it. But if you wanted to contact me through the WPBSA, by all means, and if I can help you in any way, put you in touch with whoever is your examiner, you know, in your local area, I'd be very happy to. So, you know, even through Dave, perhaps if you want to get hold of Dave and he can pass things on to me. But I'd say if you think it's something you want to do it, but you've got to be doing it for the right reasons. You ain't going to earn a lot of money, and you're always up there to be shot down. You know, you're out there. You make one mistake in 20 frames, everybody will forget the 19 good frames. They'll remember the one mistake. I think that's not just snooker. That's referees in every sport. So just remember that. If you take things personally, stay well away from it, particularly with social media the way it is.
See, when you're refereeing a match, Paul, have you ever mistakenly said, "Oh, shot, mate, good shot"?
Yeah.
Have you ever said anything? Are you actually allowed? You're not allowed to do that, are you?
No, you're not allowed to do it, and it's so unprofessional. But I've done it twice. I just couldn't stop myself, you know, because as a lover of the game, and I saw it. I mean, I'll tell you who they were. One shot was Henry, and one shot was O'Sullivan. And you know, when you love a game like I do, to get paid to stand 3 foot from those guys in all their pomp and splendour is a great thing. And I saw Ronnie queuing up once and Henry. I didn't know what they were playing. You know, I know when you address the cue ball in a certain position, what you're trying to do with it, and I had no idea what they were doing. And on both occasions, what they did was just phenomenal, and I couldn't help myself. And it wasn't a full-on good shot. I just sort of muttered it under my breath because it was a natural reaction, you know. But it's again, that's one of the rewards for doing the job I do.
So we're coming out of the lockdown, Paul, just before we wrap this up here. We're coming out of lockdown. Things are nearly getting back to normal. We can't quite get a full packed audience. You know, I don't think we're even sure where most of the venues are going to be for the qualifiers this season, are we? We're not 100% sure. But I'm sure that's all going to be sorted out in due course, and what have you. But where do you see the future in this game, Paul? Do you think is there anything you think we should do to improve snooker in terms of ability? Do you think there's anything we could change outside to improve snooker? What are your thoughts on improving the game, taking it forward?
I think the only thing I'd like to see, and you touched on it earlier when you said about the way the tour structure is, I haven't got a problem with the tour structure because I'm certainly not in a position to argue economics with Barry Hearn. He says it works, so that's fine by me, and I see a lot of people making a living. The grassroots level, the amateur game, is nothing like it was when I got involved 30 years ago, and I think that's very disappointing, and I'd like to see that improve drastically. Now, I've had conversations with Jason Ferguson and different people, you know, involved in IBSF and WSF and EPSB, all these different associations. And they do all seem to be working together now. I certainly had the opinion that there were certain amateur governing bodies who were all out to score brownie points against each other. They didn't work together. They ran minor separate tournaments where had they pooled their resources, they could have played some great events. That's the only thing I'd like to see improve. I'd like to see the amateur circuit back the way it was. I mean, I remember I was very close with Darren Morgan. Darren had started playing and was world amateur champion when I started refereeing. And I'd travel with Darren a lot. And Darren would enter a pro-am on a Saturday, maybe win 3 matches, get beaten, be straight on the phone finding where he could drive to play the next pro-am on Sunday. You know, and that was how a lot of the players in the modern game now, and even players who've already retired, that was how they learnt their trade. And unfortunately, we don't have that number of tournaments anymore. And for me, that's where the game is lacking, because if the good players don't come through, the game will stagnate and inevitably it will die eventually. And I certainly don't want to see that happen.
Paul, you have just sold my services to the public. You've just done it. That's why I'm here, boys.
This is for your pro-ams, Dave. Yeah, definitely.
I'm here to run pro-ams for top players, all professionals ranked below 64, playoff scratch in my events, because they're no better than the players that are playing in them anyway. Sorry, boys, but you're not. Just come and play in the pro-ams. If you fail your qualifiers, play in the pro-ams. Come and talk to Paul about refereeing if you don't win anything, okay? Or just take a job in Tesco's. I don't care what you do. I don't really care what you do, you know? Anyway, right, on a serious note, Paul, we're going to wrap this up. We have went 20 minutes over time, okay?
Okay.
Just because you talk too much. It's all right.
Is there anybody still watching? I'm sure they've all turned it off by now.
Paul, there's about 18 of them. Well, it's just went down to 5. There's 18 people. So, boys, this all goes on YouTube, so it'll all come under keywords. Paul Collier, Dave Lewis, of course, refereeing, World Snooker Tour. All the keywords, all the things we've talked about will be put on YouTube. It goes on there. Paul's whole family can watch this tomorrow and feel very, very embarrassed. That's okay. It's all right with me too.
Probably.
But that's why we're here. We're here to give you information, and I hope all the information that Paul has given you has helped you in terms of thinking about refereeing, in terms of having a view on referees, because we all have views on referees. Some of us hate them. Some of them think we're bad omens. I mean, I'm sure there's about 60 players out there that think Paul's the worst bit of luck they've ever had in their lives, and they'll always hold it against you, won't they, Paul? They'll hold it against
Absolutely.
You know,
I'd like to think it's only 60. Yeah.
You know, all snooker players, all the snooker gods, they all believe in snooker gods. They don't go to church. They drink too much beer and they believe in snooker gods. And bad luck every time they get you refereeing them. Right, Paul, thanks very much for joining us, mate. We're going
You're
to
welcome,
wrap
Dave.
this up, guys. Just hang on a second there, Paul. We're going to wrap this up, guys. Next Tuesday or Wednesday, we're going to talk to a couple of new professional snooker players, you know, who I've helped get back on the tour again. You know, very proud of them. They're great lads. They won a lot of money at my competitions. They got on the tour. They're going to talk about the future. They're going to talk about the things they want to do, you know. So join me next week and we'll do it all again.